Gentlemen, and any extraterrestrials or post-human creatures that may be watching this in the far-off future, the time has officially come. That time when I must call an end to the Mech Tech series. I know that some of you will say that there's still much more to cover, and I'd agree. 100%, there's a veritable infinities more I could talk about. However, due to the declining interest observable in view counts, as well as my just wanting to move on to other areas of eclectic interest, it's here that I've decided to give this particular subject a rest, at least for the time being. Though I may pick it up again at some point in the future, if and when I feel the call of inspiration. For just now, I think it's best that I call a game while I still have some motivation left in me to play, if that makes any sense. However, before I do that, there's one last item of interest I've yet to afford its fair and proper slot of attention. Oh, and one more thing. As long as I'm on the subject of myself, if you're at all interested in the illustrations, diagrams, and whatnot you've seen in the backgrounds of my videos, I'm going to start posting them over on X. The link is down in the description. If there's anyone you've seen and fancy that isn't up, feel free to drop a request and I'll be sure to rectify that post-haste. And now, without any further ado, I present for your approval and hopefully inspiration, smart weapons, namely drones, guided missiles, and such like. As is only appropriate, we'll launch this thing on the pad instead of in the pod. That was one of the stupidest segues I've ever written. Anyway, most people in modern times, when they hear the word drone, probably think of a sport ball-sized quadcopter with camera eyes and possibly some feet for landing. And in the interest of academic fairness and clarity, this isn't entirely unjustified, as about 99.999% of the time, if you're going to encounter a drone in the wild, it's going to be some species of the above. However, strictly speaking, a drone can, and frequently does, encompass the total spectrum of unpiloted machines. Some people will say, not without reason, why not use drones exclusively instead of mechs? To which my answer is this. Unless you plan on delegating your trigger finger to an AI, a drone requires a constant line of connection to a human operator, which would be fine for most earthly battlefields, but try maintaining a wireless signal on a planetoid or a moon with no atmosphere and see how long your antenna can support the solar winds channel before melting off. This is a joke for all the artists in the crowd. Calm down. That said, due to their size and form variability, owed to their not having to accommodate a human pilot, a drone is free to take full and unabated advantage of every technological asset a mech tech has in his garage, from AMFs and space-age metamaterials to nuclear reactors and even the MTTs. I should note here too that it can equally apply to an ordinarily manned vehicle with sufficiently advanced automated drive and navigation components. And next, and probably most awaited on the old chopping block, guided missiles, not to be confused with dumbfire rockets, which are just the Molotov variant of fireworks. No, unlike firearms, which use an explosive charge to accelerate a projectile to extreme speeds over a very short time increment, a rocket uses a propellant to force a projectile up to speed over a longer stretch of time and distance. A missile, by contrast, uses a complex system of internal electronics and controls to alter its course mid-flight so as to intercept a moving target. Now, I'm only bringing this up because there'll be some smartass asking about it in the comments if I don't. As I see it, the benefits of a rocket gun, as in a gun that uses rocket motors instead of explosives for its ammo charge, are directly and unilaterally cancelled out by the difficulty in manufacturing and unreliability of these munitions in the field. And with that trite bit of trivia squared off, let us move on to the other main point, guidance types and countermeasures. First up, there's 4 main methods of guiding a warhead to a forehead, and those types consist of thermal, radar, laser, and wire-controlled. These all work pretty much exactly how you'd expect them to, with the one notable exception being fire and forget, or FAF. Again, they're fairly straightforward, being an alternative variant of the radar-guided or thermal varieties, but with the bulk of the guidance system being located on the actual missile itself, instead of relying on an external source such as the plane or ground emplacement that launched it to continually track and walk the missile to the target. The advantages of this are, obviously, the ability to simply establish a lock and pull the trigger, then immediately dive away for cover while the missile does all the heavy work for you. But the trade-off, because there always is one, is a slightly slower top speed, owing to the increased weight of the warhead. And also, the steep increase of price per shot could be prohibitive for some less advanced or industrious factions that don't have access to the bottomless coffers of a military-industrial complex and/or who don't have a defining seat in a future war economy's Senate. From there, we must further discuss how these weapons might be countered. For a start, any form of guidance which requires a continuous link between the missile and the launcher can, and almost certainly will if fired on a near-peer adversary, be disrupted by a strong enough electromagnetic signal tuned to the right frequency. In the broadest sense, electronic countermeasures fall under 3 distinct categories, with other smaller subgenres nested in each for that extra added bit of zest that every future war zone needs to keep soldiers on their toes. Category 1. Radar. This can include, but likely is not limited to, interference, which includes jamming or transmission of signals on the same radar frequency with the purpose of hiding echoes with noise. Deception, using transponders to alter your radar signature with the goal of tricking the enemy into thinking you're a larger or smaller target or that you're further ahead or behind than you actually are. Target modification, which attempt to absorb, redirect, or otherwise obscure your radar signature or to amplify that of a decoy, and/or chaff, aluminum strips meant to confuse radar echoes, usually those of SAM batteries. Group 2. Communications, meaning the transmission of disruptive radio signals, making it so the enemy's receiver can't tell noise from signal. And Group 3. Kinetic. These include, but again are most likely not strictly limited to, surface-to-air missiles, SAMs, and what I've elected to simply classify as bullet storms, alternatively known as bullet hells, bullet walls, or metal storms. Basically, it's where you saturate the path of an incoming missile with lead so it blows that up instead of you. And with that covers just about all the essential baselines for this segment, apart from a few extremely speculative things like AI, which I've devoted a whole segment to in my upcoming book, The Everyman's Mech Tech Bible, coming hopefully very soon, once I get through the beta review and final editing phases. Be sure to leave a like and a comment if you're as excited for that as I am, and I don't toss that sort of language around as flippantly as many other YouTubers. And of course also consider leaving me a tip or checking out my already available books on Amazon if you're into the same sorts of esoteric flights of fantasy that I am. And in any event, I think that's about my piece said for another day. As always, until next time, stay safe, stay sane, and remember, the gods favor the bold, luck favors the prepared, and history remembers those with the will to seize its reins. Peace be upon you.